today over the Gurkhas in this building, wasn't
Jordan,
it? It's a pantomime farce.
Phil Wallace isn't a bad man, but the government as a whole needs to just hold up its hand and say...
I mean, we talked about the Gurkhas earlier,
yeah.
discussions about Gordon Brown, but I'm at a loss to see why don't you just raise the white flag to Joanna Lumley?
That's what...
Even if you're right, it's just now an impossible position to be in.
It's an impossible position because they just need to hold up their hands and say, OK, and just deal with it, because she's not going to give up. And she's so effective. And she comes over so much cleverer than when she's put up against Paul Phil.
I mean, I know you've got more sympathy for the government's position on the Gurkhas, as you said last week, but
sometimes
it's just a presentation of disaster.
Sometimes in politics...
But I made the point about having more sympathy with the government's position on the Gurkhas in order to demonstrate how badly the government was doing. I was saying that actually the government's case wasn't all that bad, but you certainly wouldn't know it from the fists they've made of presenting it. During this week, we had the revelation that Joanna Lumley had written to the Prime Minister 3 times and not even gotten an acknowledgement. So then he gives a hurried meeting. Then there's some confusion about what's been said as to whether it's all going to be resolved by May. Meanwhile, other ministers are giving the impression all week that they're actually going to ignore what Parliament has said, allowing Joanna Lumley to say, quite rightly, what most of the public would have been thinking, that we misunderstand democracy. What is this democracy where Parliament makes a decision
and the government carries on
to ignore it?
Just such a final thing. Despite all of this going on, are we really any clearer yet what the government policy is on the Gurkhas?
I'm not, no.
Michael?
No, I mean, I listened to Phil Wallace, what he was saying in front of Joanna Lumley, and of course it was unintelligible. I mean, he was talking twaddle, as people in politics often do, and she was just talking the plain language of the
truth is, they'd like to exercise a certain amount of discretion, but they don't want to let all the Gurkhas in because they're worried about the precedent.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the Royal Mail and this plan to privatise it, which it looks like the government may only get through with Conservative votes.
It's a car crash. It's a car crash. The Labour MPs' opposition is holding up, and not just from the left.
Opposition to the government's proposals.
Yeah, Labour MPs' opposition to the government's proposals is holding up, not just from the left, but from a lot of mainstream MPs, very solid. People are trying to tell Gordon and Peter Mandelson that the votes are not there to get this through. Mandelson just gets hysterical and says people are trying to undermine him. Mandelson's problem is in the law. He doesn't talk to ordinary MPs. He doesn't understand how ordinary MPs feel. They will only get it through with Tory votes. But what we'll think is the Tories may vote with them initially, but they'll bide their time and then turn around and say, oh, we don't really like this. This isn't radical enough, and leave them.
And then he doesn't have a majority.
He doesn't have a majority.
But if Phil Willis said to me this week that the vote wouldn't come until after the June elections. The June elections are expected to be pretty bad for the Prime Minister and the Labour Party. So if they come in the aftermath of that, given that Mr Brown's standing in the Labour Party at the moment is not the strongest it's been, what does it mean for him if he only gets this through with Tory votes?
It's not good at all. What they're going to try and do is tell the more gullible MPs, oh, you can't vote against government. It's a confidence vote. Yes. Actually, it's not a confidence vote. I mean, but it's not going to be good for him if he loses.
It's not an official vote of confidence, is it? I mean, the government...
No,
the government doesn't resign if it loses the Royal Mail vote, does it?
And if he lost it, no, of course not. And it's important to say this, if he lost it, and the Tories called for a confidence vote, we'd all vote for our government in a confidence vote. But they're crazy. They are not listening. Whatever the merits of their project, they are not listening to their own MPs. It's a car crash.
I mean, the Tories simply are in a position where they can't lose, really, because, the Tories believe in part privatisation of the Royal Mail, so the natural position for them is to vote for the measure. If it goes through only with Tory support, that's terrible for the Labour Party. If at some point later it gets defeated, that's terrible for the Labour Party. Even if it goes all the way through to the statute book with Conservative support, that's terrible for the Labour Party. It's difficult to see how the Tories can lose on this one.
Now, the other thing that's meant to happen after the June elections is a cabinet reshuffle. Let me give you a non-Westminster view. Cabinet reshuffles don't matter to anybody except sad people like us.
I think that's right.
Let me give you a slightly different view. I think the Home Secretary is such a liability to this government on a daily basis that if you had no Home Secretary, you'd be better off than you are now.
It did become bizarre this week when she banned an American disc jockey who hadn't applied to come to the country in the first place because of his views on autism. Now, I'm sure his views on autism are bonkers, but that's not really a reason I mean, it's become crazy.
That may not be her fault. That may just be her officials as she signed it without looking at it. I don't know.
But why are you banning people that haven't even asked to come to the country? That no one had ever heard of before. So Jackie Smith's a goner, do you think?
I wouldn't like to say.
That's a yes, I think. Hazel Blear's...
a goner from that position.
From that... The papers are also saying Hazel Blear's could be gone because of her wonderful YouTube If You Want To line, which was rather clever. I'd be surprised with that. You wouldn't want her outside the cabinet if you were Mr. Brown.
I was in the chamber for Prime Ministers and she was standing behind the Speaker's chair and her face when Cameron was quoting her. She's a very, very ambitious woman. She thinks she's the Barbara Castle of the 21st century.
I think she hasn't ruled out in her own mind being leader of your party.
I don't think she has.
No, exactly. So if we let's take it all in together. We know everything that's happened. Let's assume that the polls are right and June the 4th will be very bad for the government and that you've got this rumbling row going through June on part privatisation. Take all that. Is his leadership still safe this summer?
My view is, who would want leadership of the Labour Party at this point?
Jack Straw as a caretaker?
Well, this is it. You can rule out all the
young Turks don't want it.
Yeah, you can rule out Miliband, Major and Minor and all those people. But Jack, Harriet perhaps. But I would still put money on him being leader at the next election.
You'd still with Michael.
And so would I, and I would assume that much of the Labour Party will be extraordinarily unhappy that is the case, but there's nothing else to be done.
Well, so would I, but I have to confess I'm not quite as sure as I was a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.